Workshop. Cantor Jackie Raffi and I look forward to learning with all of you together a little bit of Tefillah together, a little bit of the Siddur, and we are delighted that you continue to join us each Tuesday at 5:30 to learn a new Tefillah. We're going to begin as we normally do, as we have in the past, with a tefillah, a prayer to get us in the mood of the moment. And the prayer that we are singing is Ivdu et Hashem besimcha bo lifanav birnana, which is that we come to the worship of tefillah with a spirit of joy and overwhelming happiness, because that is the best way in which we can connect to God. So Cantor Jack is going to lead us in Ivdu et Hashem, and go ahead and mic yourself and sing as loud as you can.
That's to everybody, right? You're talking to everybody.
To everybody to mic themselves and sing loud.
I'll stay muted, but I'll sing loud.
You don't want me to do that.
Mute it. That's what I meant. Mute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
That's very different. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha, ivdu et Hashem besimcha, bo lefanav birnana, lefanav birnana. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha, ivdu et Hashem besimcha, bo lefanav birnana, lefanav birnana. Yala la yala la yala la la la, ya la 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 la, yala la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la la, ya la la ya la la ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la la. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha, ivdu et Hashem besimcha, bo lefanav birnana, lefanav birnana.
So, and in the spirit of joining in worship with Simcha, let's begin with a bracha for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So today, we're actually going to be looking at a tefillah that really is a Torah tefillah. It is much more a passage of Torah than originally it was a tefillah, but it has become central in worship to, oops. No problem, Stacy. We'll forgive you this time, but only this time. If you do that ever again, we're just not going to allow you in the Zoom room.
I didn't do my homework either.
Oh, I'm glad you reminded me. Thank you. It's been a couple of weeks. What was the homework that I gave everybody? Do you remember? I'm sure you remember, Kevin. What was the homework?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't remember either. So you're all off this week because I didn't write it down.
Does it have to do with Hashkivenu and
Yes,
thinking about something before you go to bed or when you wake up?
Thank you, Barry. Barry's like Horshack in Welcome Back, Kotter. For those of you, that's not a reference that Jackie's going to understand at all. Okay, so the tefillah that I want to look at today is, well, actually, it's not the tefillah that I want to look at. It's the one that Cantor Jackie chose, is the Ve'ahavta. A very, very well-known and famous tefillah that we all probably know by heart. That's part of the Shema trilogy of the 3 paragraphs that follow the Shema. But I want to look at it in a way that hopefully none of us have ever looked at it before. I want to try to understand what is the intention of the tefillah, what is the structure of the tefillah, and what is it trying to achieve for the reader who chants it. So the first thing I want us to take a look at, which is an interesting question, and by the way, much of the material that I'm sharing with you is material that I learned many years ago from a really profound teacher of tefillah. His name is Dr. Rabbi Reuven Kimmelman. and he is an expert in tefillah. And much of what I know about the Ve'ahavta, I originally learned from him. So the first question that he actually posed when he was teaching the Ve'ahavta was, when we recite the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. What is the idea behind the Shema? We are acknowledging the kingship or the rulership or the sovereignty of God in our lives and in the world. And he poses the question, he says, wouldn't it make more sense? Oh, you know what, Jackie, I didn't make you a host, so you can't help me let people in. So let me do that. Nor can you share your screen. Okay, there we go. He asked the question, he says, wouldn't it make more sense to continue a tefillah that deals with God's kingship or sovereignty with a paragraph that deals with fear or awe or trembling or trepidation? Wouldn't that make more sense that that is the emotional state and the spiritual state that we should be in after we've acknowledged the sovereignty of God in our lives and in the world? And yet it doesn't, because what flows, the first word after the Shema is Ve'ahavta. That we don't move from a place of acknowledging God's sovereignty and expect yirah, but rather ahava. Not yirah, awe, trembling, fear, but rather love. Ve'ahavta is, unlike the Shema, is written in the singular. So after we as a community acknowledge collectively, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, the next line is Ve'ahavta, which is in the singular. You individually shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. So the question is, what does it mean to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might? Would it be helpful to everybody to see the tefillah in front of you as I'm doing it? Yes, I'm seeing heads shaking. So thanks, Jackie, for sharing it. Okay. So the first thing you notice is Ve'ahavta is written in the singular, addressed to you specifically, not to the community. So the challenge of Ve'ahavta begins with we are asking what is going to be the nature of the relationship that you individually have to God. And it begins with love. But the question is, what is the nature of that love? So I think the this opening line, Ve'ahavta, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Do you notice that there is a colon right after that because it's the end of a verse? I think that verse is the introduction to the rest of this prayer, and the rest of this prayer is an answer to how it is that we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might. So let's take a look at what each of them are. Let's begin with B'chol Levavcha. First of all, what do you notice that's strange about the word Levavcha? You know what? I'm going to change my screen so I can see all of you better. Hold on a second, so that if I ask a question.
I can stop the share every time you ask a question and then go back.
No, that's okay. What I'm doing is I'm just moving my screen over, making everybody bigger so that I can see. So, B'chol Levavcha, what do you see that's odd, especially for those Hebrew speakers? How do you spell heart in Hebrew?
Lamed.
Lamed bet,
Lamed
exactly.
bet.
Lamed bet. But how is it spelled here?
So double bet.
Exactly. It's a double bet. And that leads the rabbis to say that when we love the Lord our God with all our heart, we want to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all of our inclinations, with all our proclivities, both our inclination for good, for tov, yetzer tov, and the inclination for ra, the yetzer hara, which is interesting, right? Because when we think of the yetzer hara, what do we think of? What is the yetzer hara? It's translated as the evil inclination. Yeah, Mendy.
Animal instinct or energy.
Okay, so how do we love? So what is it asking us, Mendy?
What was that again?
So if we're to love God with both our yetzer hara and our yetzer hatov, what in essence is the prayer suggesting? How do we come to this expression of love for God?
It's everything.
Yeah, with all of our desires, right? With all of our inclinations, with all of our passion. Because the yetzer hara, even though it's translated oftentimes as the evil inclination, is, as Barry said, not evil in the sense of terrible bad. It's that which drives us in order to be able to achieve. It's the desires that we have, that when we're hungry, we want to eat. When we're tired, we want to sleep. It's the desire to go out and make a life for ourselves and make a name for ourselves. And so what we're doing here is we're saying that we want to love God with all of our emotional energy, right? With all of the, and by the way, the biblical understanding of lev is not the emotion. What's the biblical understanding of lev? The mind. So if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, what it's saying is we should love God with all of our intellect. And from a rabbinic standpoint, we should love God with all of our yetzer hara and our yetzer hatov, with our emotional energy as well as our intellectual abilities. That's the way that we should approach loving God. So that's b'chol levavcha. The next, uv'chol nafshecha. What does nefesh mean?
Soul.
Oh,
Good. Okay, so nefesh means soul. So what does that mean to love God with our soul?
Well, not before it was our energy, both, but now soul would be like our I just forgot my word. Never mind.
How about our spiritual capacity? So
Thank
we
you.
love God with our emotions, we love God with our intellect, and we love God with our spiritual capacity as well. So there's the totality of our being is to be dedicated towards this idea of loving God. The rabbis say that the nefesh actually, and there's that very famous story of Rabbi Akiva when he is being martyred and burnt by the Romans on the stake, and he sees the letters that are going up into heaven, and he says that it was for this moment that I understand, only in this moment, what it means to give my life for the sake of loving God. That was the idea behind martyrdom. For the rabbis, they learned that your nefesh is not just your soul, but it's actually your physical being. So it's the physical capacity to give and the spiritual capacity to give. So far we have our emotions, our intellect, our spiritual, and our physical. What about uv'chol me'odecha? We shall love the Lord your God with all of our might. What does might mean? According to Rashi, the biblical commentator, might is our financial resources. It's our wealth. So when we approach this capacity to love God, We approach this capacity to love God with the totality of our physical being, our emotional being, our spiritual being, the whole of ourselves. That's the way that we want to enter into worship and into prayer with God. That's obviously a hard thing to achieve, isn't it? Because when we're worshiping, when we're praying, when we're doing something, our mind is wandering. We're thinking about all sorts of things. But the aspirational aspect of this prayer is this is the way that we are supposed to worship God. So if this is the introduction, then I think that each of the next lines of this prayer help define more specifically each of these three categories. So B'chol levavcha corresponds to the next line, V'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. Then the next line, Uvechol nafshecha, relates to Vishinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam b'shivta uvetecha uvlechtecha v'derech ushophecha uvkumecha. And finally, B'chol meodecha relates to the last line, Ukshartam leot al yedecha v'hiyulo totofot beinenecha uchtavtam amazo betecha uvisharecha. So how does this work? Let's go through each one of them. And by the way, I just got a phone call, so it may ring on my computer because I still haven't turned that off. And if it does, I apologize. All right, the lave. So the next line, V'hayu hadvarim ha'ela, and these words, Asher anochi mitzavecha hayom, that I command you this day, you shall take them to heart. Right? They shall be part of your heart. So what does that mean? That they shall be part of your heart? Well, how do they become part of our heart? Vishinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam b'shivtecha b'vetecha uvlechtecha v'derech ushophecha v'kumecha. We shall teach them to your children. We shall speak of them when we lie down, or when we rise up, in our homes and away from our homes. So what does it mean that when we lie down and when we wake up, and in our home and away from our home? What is the essence of what it is that we're trying to understand in those two phrases?
Do it always.
Caps.
Yeah, do it always, from the time that we wake up in the morning to the time that we go to sleep at night. And not only always, but everywhere, right? There is not a moment where we shouldn't be thinking about or attempting to love the Lord our God, right? When we walk in this world, when we're awake, when we're lying down. What does the line Vishinantam levanecha mean? And you shall teach them to your children. How does this relate to either B'chol levavcha, Uvechol nafshecha, or Uvechol meodecha?
Go ahead.
I think you become a model for your children as you believe and incorporate it into your life. Your children see that and also learn to do that.
Good. Would you say that children relates to levavcha, nafshecha, or meodecha?
Oh, wait. You have to say it in English.
Does it
Maybe all
relate
of
to
them.
heart? Does it relate to soul? Or does it relate to might?
Maybe it relates to all of them.
All of it, I guess. But
Why do you
mostly-
think that, Barry? How would it relate to all of them?
Well, if we're going to be an example of loving God in all those ways, then our children should too. And if they follow our lead, then it'll be part of them also.
Excellent. Other thoughts? What's the best example of ourselves in this world? Right? Hopefully the best example of ourselves is our children, right? Our children are, in a sense, more than just an extension of ourselves, of our body and soul, but a Boy, the phones are ringing left and right. Um, but um, we give the totality of ourselves into our children, and they represent even in their DNA aspects of ourself. So perhaps this is an expression of nafshecha, literally, right? The nefesh, our being, is expressed in the offspring that we bring into the world. And so we know when we've achieved a deep sense of love for God, when our children mirror, as you said, Barry, the very things that we're doing in our life. When we live our life in a manner which is reflective of loving God, and we see it in the way that our children behave towards one another in this world, towards Judaism, then we know that we've succeeded in B'chol Nafshecha. Yeah, Judy.
How does that square with when people are really great parents and do everything the best they can do, and their kids turn out not so great?
Well, so it's a great question because ultimately, our children are not ourselves, and we could do as much as we can and hopefully guide them as much as we can. But at some point, even Judaism recognizes that at a certain age, they are independent of us. And as independent beings, we hope and pray that they live by the values and the ideals that we set forth for them, but there's never an absolute guarantee. Yeah, Stacy.
I don't necessarily think that it's a literal to teach it to my offspring, because like I had 10 years with Harry when I didn't have offspring, but perhaps the intention is to the next generation, or to the children of Israel, not so much my actual literal children. I hadn't thought of it till today, but not everyone has kids. I don't know. Maybe it's
That's nice. Actually, what's the definition of how does Judaism understand parenting? Right? Judaism understands parenting not as not solely as a biological experience, but more as a intellectual and physical experience of those who care for others and educate others are like the parents of those children. And the rabbis, oftentimes in the Talmud, replace and put as a teacher at a higher level as a parent, because they see that those who educate are far more the parents than those who simply give birth to children and then don't do anything to set those children on the right path. So that's an important point, Stacy. Thank you. I think did I see another hand up or no? Yeah, Barry. I thought I did.
Well, based on what Stacy said, it's kind of like if we're an example in the world and we're doing the right things, then people are going to learn from how we behave and how we act. And that's what I picked up from what Stacy said, is that even if we don't have children, or we're not able to help a child or help somebody that is not biologically ours, that leading the right life, and we're really shining a light on the world and everybody sees how we operate, and maybe that'll have an effect. That's kind of what I got from what Stacy said.
Yeah, Ziggy.
Yeah, but the way I read this is that your responsibility, if you don't teach it to your kids, how can you expect anybody else to teach it to your kids? So your responsibility starts in your home and goes from there. And that's the way I read it.
Good. It starts in your home, but doesn't end in your home. Our first responsibility is to our children, but our responsibility to the children doesn't exclude our responsibility to the children of the world.
Clearly.
And if we recognize that parenting is more than just bringing forth biologically our children, but recognizing that we are teachers and have an obligation. In the Shema, right? Remember, the Shema, the last word of the last letter of the Shema, Shin Mem Ayin, the Ayin is written a little bit larger. And the last letter of Echad, the Daled, is written a little bit larger. And together, the Ayin and the Daled make up a Hebrew word, aid, which means witness or testimony. And so the idea of the Shema is that it's not enough for us just to understand intellectually and emotionally that God is one, but it's to live our life in witness to, testifying to the oneness of God, the unity of God. And it's not just the oneness of God as in God is singular, but the oneness of God that God is all that is, that exists in this world, and that we're demanded by Jewish law to live a life of a moral decency and express this notion of Ehavta l'recha kamocha from this principle that God is one. And we do that by, right, loving God with the totality of our being, educating our children and the rest of the world by the way in which we live our lives. Yeah, Ruth Ann.
Sometimes we think that our children are rejecting us, but they're picking it up in a subtle way and showing it to the world in a different way. For example, raising with my son, we observed Shabbat very strictly at the beginning, and we couldn't kill a fly, and so that was a rule of Shabbat. But yet, I think it may have had an influence in him becoming a vegetarian. So he may be expressing it differently, but he may be carrying that observance of Shabbat, just showing it in a different way.
Yeah, that's part of the whole process of tzimtzum, of stepping back, contracting ourselves, educating our children, and then letting them figure out for themselves how it is that they are going to take the teachings of Torah and our teachings and incorporate them and assimilate them into their own lives. And our job to support them in the manner in which they choose best to live Jewish lives. Okay, since I'm running out of time, I want to just make sure that we finish this tefillah. So we've got V'shinantam levanecha v'dibertam bam b'shivtecha v'vitecha v'lechtecha v'derech shoch b'cha v'kumecha. So when it says when we lie down and when we rise up, what does that mean when we lie down and when we rise up? So there's a debate, right? Does it mean literally that we lie down and we say the Shema, and when we get up, we say the Shema? Or is it more figurative, that we recite the Shema before we go to sleep at night when it's nighttime, and we recite the Shema during the day when it's daytime? And so the tradition is that we go according to the position that it doesn't literally mean that we wait until we lie down to recite the Shema, and we don't wait until we get out of bed to recite the Shema, but that we recite the Shema and we love God, right, in this manner once we start our day and when we finish our day, so that throughout our every waking moment, we are concentrating on the potential for how we can learn to love God, in the various actions of our day. Okay, ukshartam aleot al yadecha v'hayula totafot beinenecha, and you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand and as some kind of sign between your eyes. So what does that refer to?
Tefillin.
Exactly, it refers to the tefillin. And it's interesting to note that the tefillin of the hand, there is one single box with all of the single scroll that's rolled up in that one box. And the tefillin of the Rosh has 4 different compartments, and there is a piece of parchment in each of those compartments. And so our sages say that it's done that way because if we're going to love God with our intellectual, our emotional, and our physical being, then that's expressed in our five senses. And there are four senses connected to our rosh, to our head: the sense of sound, of smell, of taste, and of sight. So that each of the boxes in the tefillin shel rosh reminds us of how we should serve God and love God with those four senses. And the tefillin on the yad, on the arm, relates to the sense of touch. And it's singular, which is why there's only one box with the scroll written there. So again, emphasizing that it is with all five of our senses that we make a commitment to loving God. The last line, Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha, we shall write them on the mezuzot of our homes and of our gates. This relates to the last expression, ubechol meodecha, and you shall love God with all of your might. Remember I said that Rashi teaches us that meodecha, your might, is your physical sustenance, your physical abilities, your financial capabilities. And what more than a home represents our financial wherewithal in this world? So we write the words on our homes and on our gates to symbolize that all of our financial resources in this world are connected and committed to the serving of God and the loving of God.
Is that why we got our membership dues letters today?
You did?
Yeah.
I think that was just coincidence.
Okay, just checking.
Just out of curiosity, was the letter a compelling letter, Barry?
I didn't really, no offense, I didn't read it because I'm just going to renew, so I didn't read it. Sorry.
You're the only one that got it.
Maybe you're the only one that got one, Barry.
Uh-oh.
Mendy, say that again. I didn't hear what you said.
I think Barry's the only one who got one.
Oh.
He's paying for all of them.
I didn't get one. Maybe they don't want my membership, but I didn't get one.
I didn't get one either.
Well, Barry lives close. Well, I was going to say Barry lives closest to the synagogue, but that's not true. The Solomons also live pretty close to the synagogue.
They live closer.
Closer.
And my mail actually comes to my office, so I don't know.
I got a membership package and email.
Well, that's it. Membership package.
I got it by email.
And I think Rabbi Cameron should put a mezuzah, if you go by the thing, on the gates of USC.
Yeah, that's true. That is the financial outpouring of the last couple of years and 2 more years to come. It's absolutely true. So, what is the nature of love according to this prayer? It is not which we normally think. When we think of love, we normally think of love simply as an emotional response to what it is, like that what we're feeling inside of us. But here it's very, very clearly laid out that in Judaism, love is volitional. Love is demanding. Love is obligatory. Love, in the context of the Shema, challenges us, encourages us, almost forces us to say that it's not enough to feel a sense of love for God. We actually have to commit our financial wherewithal, our physical being, all 5 of our senses, and our spiritual energy to a state of constantly being aware of Ol Malchut Shamayim, of this accepting the obligation to serve God and to recognize that God is sovereign in our lives. We don't just feel it. That's not the nature of love according to the Ve'ahavta. It is obligatory. We have to act it. We have to live it. We have to do things on a constant basis that demonstrate that we are keeping God in our heart, in our mind, and in our souls. And if we can do that all the time, then we are fulfilling the vision of what the Ve'ahavta is all about. So I'm going to stop, ask any last questions or comments or thoughts before we turn it over to Cantor Raffi for the fun part of our course. Okay, you're on. Oh, did somebody have a comment?
Yeah, Flora.
Yeah,
I
Flora,
just want
please.
to quickly say that it's such a powerful prayer that even Christians follow it. I had a work colleague, several years ago, copying the prayer in English. She's Seventh Day Adventist, and she knew the prayer by heart in English, and I didn't realize that was followed in some churches, I guess.
That's nice. Yeah, there's no question this is universal, that there's nothing here. It's true that it says mitzvah, and we know in terms of the mitzvot with the tefillin and the talit that there are 613 specific ways in which we as Jews can love God. But the prayer is absolutely 100% universal in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gil.
And Steve Covey in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People says love is a verb, not a noun.
Right.
Rav, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I may ask you. So the first word of the prayer Ve'ahavta, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong. That's like the past tense with the reversing vav, which makes it future. But why isn't it a command? Why is it a future tense of a verb, as though like predicting the future? You will love God.
No, it's more like a command. You shall in the future love God. It's not that you love God today because you don't know how to love God today. But if you do all of these things that the prayer says, if you love God with your proclivities, your Yetzer Hara, your Yetzer Hatov, if you dedicate yourself with all your senses, those 5 senses, if you dedicate yourself with all of your financial resources, if you teach it to your children and show them, if you do all those things, then you will be fulfilling the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta that the prayer challenges us in the beginning. All right, so are there any melodies beyond the melody from the Torah with the trope that we know from this prayer?
So there may be a few melodies that that have made their way across different communities. And there's a concept, I don't know if any of you have heard the term Mi Sinai, but from Sinai, like where we receive the Torah. And it's a term used to refer to, it's a phrase used to refer to melodies that seem so old that they must have been from Sinai when the Torah was revealed to us. And every community has a different Mi Sinai, right? So the Ve'ahavta that we all know and grew up with, which is Torah trope, is Ashkenazi Torah trope. So that's the American melody of Ve'ahavta, but it's not necessarily the Mi Sinai melody of a Sephardic community or Persian community or a Ugandan community. But that being said, it's trope because it's taken from the Torah. That's how it's typically chanted. So, however, there have been some composers who've taken the liberty to interpret it with their own melodies and their own creative spirit. So I wanted to share 2 melodies with you that I really love and that really resonate with me. And one of them is, it's in Hebrew and it's by a composer named Michael Isaacson. He's a prolific composer. And so I'll share the words again. This one is in Hebrew and it actually has a really catchy nigun as well. So I'll teach you that nigun if that's the one you choose. The other one, who has heard of Debbie Friedman's Shema and Ve'ahavta? All right, great. So there is a Hebrew and an English version, and I'd love to share the English version with you because we rarely get to hear the English, and I think that singing it in English brings a different dimension to it. We've studied all these words now and in both Hebrew and English, but I think it brings a different dimension. And I just want to know, so I'll begin with Michael Isaacson's version because I think possibly fewer of you have heard that one. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm just going to mute. I hear a little bit of sound. Okay, here we go. All right, so this one starts with the nigun. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Let me just, sorry, I'm gonna turn my mic up. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Yes? Okay, so here's how this goes. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי לי לי. Then it switches to a major mode. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי לי לי. And then we move to Debbie Friedman's version, and I'll share the English words with you here. So this was written she actually wrote this in 1972. So she used the older English translation, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and we've since updated our prayer books. If you look at Lev Shalom, for example, it says, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. So it's a little bit less formal language. So even although she initially wrote it with the more formal language, I'm going to sing it with I think it's a little more conversational and relatable. And by the way, she also wrote a beautiful Shema that goes before this. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them daily walk by the way, and when you rise up, and when you lie down, and when you lie down, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God. So which one do we want to learn? And what are your reflections or thoughts? Did one of them feel more resonant or more matched to the way that you interpret the words, the text?
I like the first one better. It was more interesting.
Who was the first one?
Who was the first one, or what was the first one?
Who wrote it?
That was Michael Isaacson, who's a Jewish composer. He's written a lot of melodies you've probably heard. I'm trying to think of another one you might know. But so the first one,
I'm with Ruth Ann. I like the first one.
Stacy likes number one. Kevin, you like number one? Okay.
I like number one.
The first song has a pretty broad octave range that I think the congregation will have a lot of trouble singing.
Yeah, difficult.
Yeah, especially if they've lost their voice like me. But if you that can be actually changed. So this part where it goes Vishinantam levanecha. Instead of going up to that, you could do Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha beveitecha. So it could be adjusted, that second part. Okay, so it looks like just a show of hands who wants to learn the first one. And just curious, the second one, did that one resonate with anybody? It did? Yeah, so interesting. Okay. So here we go. So this one has a nigun. So I'll teach the nigun first. And can anybody let me know if has anybody actually heard this melody before by a show of hands? Stacy has. Not really? Nobody else? Okay, great. So this one goes. Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Everyone try that with me. Just try it at home. Actually, with Kevin here with us. So just, Kevin, will you repeat this after me?
Sure.
So, lie, 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 lie. Try that.
Lie, 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 lie.
Good. Lie, 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 lie.
Lie, 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 lie.
Good. Lie, 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 lie. Everybody.
Lie, 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 lie.
Then we repeat. Lie, 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 lie. Try that.
Lie, 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 lie.
Good. Lie, 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 lie.
Lie, 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 lie.
And then it ends like this. Lie, 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 lie.
Lie, 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 lie.
Good. So actually, the way he wrote it, to your point, to whoever made that point about it being too high, he actually wrote it
I haven't.
lie, 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 lie. And
That's
so
what I got.
Yeah.
That's what I got in my music I'm reading.
Oh, you got the sheet music. Very nice.
I
All right. So
do.
now everybody mute and let's all sing that together. Okay? Sing it with me. And I wish I could hear you. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Yeah, lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Okay. So I'll start with the words now. Ve'ahavta. Go ahead, Kevin.
Ve'ahavta
Et Adonai Elohecha.
et Adonai Elohecha.
I'm gonna do that one more time. Et Adonai Elohecha.
Et Adonai Elohecha.
Good. And Kevin, don't follow the music exactly because I'm simplifying it, okay?
Oh, okay, got it.
Bechol levavcha.
Bechol levavcha.
Uvchol nafshecha.
Uvchol nafshecha.
Uvechol meodecha.
Uvechol meodecha.
Good. So you can hear that the melody, once the composer puts it to the text, he's mirroring the nigun. So it becomes a familiar melody. So now everybody mute again. Kevin, you can mute and just sing this with me as best as you can. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvchol nafshecha uvechol meotecha. Do it again with me. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvchol nafshecha uvechol meotecha. Let's go back to the nigun. Lie, 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 la, 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 lie, 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 la, la, lie, 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 lie. Now in the remaining 2 minutes we have, it's that same melody you just learned, but now we're on the next sentence. Vehayu hadvarim. Vehayu hadvarim. Vehayu hadvarim ha'ele. That's called poetic license. He's repeating that phrase. Let's do that again. Vehayu hadvarim. Vehayu hadvarim ha'ele. Asher anochi. Actually, that's not how he wrote it. He wrote Asher. Let's do that, everybody. Asher Anochi. Kevin.
Anochi.
Good. So let me just sing that whole phrase. This is a melody that repeats in this. Da 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 da. So if you put it to the words, it's Asher Anochi. Kevin.
Asher Anochi. Sorry.
Good. It's okay. Now everybody sing that with me. Kevin, mute. Asher Anochi mitzavcha hayom alevavecha. Kevin, just do this part. Mitzavcha hayom alevavecha.
Mitzavcha hayom alevavecha.
Good. And now we join together again with the nigun, everyone. Yai, lai, 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 la, 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 lai, la, 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 lai, 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 la, lai, la, 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 lai, 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 lai. And we don't have time for the second part, but you can just take this melody and actually apply it to the whole rest of the text. But maybe another time, if you want to learn the second part, contact me. I'll happily teach you, or I'll send you a recording of it when I get my voice back. Rabbi is muted.
So I want to know if that was Cantor Jackie singing with a hoarse voice. Was everybody else thinking about that same thing when she said that? You too? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. Thank all of you. We're so glad that you continue to come to this class and continue to learn Tefillah with us. Next week, I don't remember. What did we say we're going to be doing? Did we?
We have not announced it yet.
Oh, okay. So stay tuned, but we'll be back next week. And we hope you have a great week. Stay safe out there. Let us pray with all of our hearts, with all of our souls, with all of our might, that we can create and live in a world free from racism, free from prejudice, and one that truly values every human being with justice and equality. Let those prayers go out into the world, and may we do our part in making sure that justice resides in our land. Take care, everybody, and we will see you soon. Oh, join us for Shabbat Under the Stars, barbecue style, this coming Friday night. You'll hear more about it in our